What is that one thing that you have invested thousands of hours working on it and now it's useless? I have a 2 terabytes hard drive that contained about 10 years of my digital life, mostly photos and videos. I had transferred the contents of 3 older computers to it before wiping those drives and recycling them through local tox drop services. Then about a year after I got it, it made that terrible click and chirp sound. I've tried it probably 50x in hope of it working, but I read a little about that and likely made it worse. Now I have a little box of irrecoverable ones and zeros. My degree in education, when I realized on my first day of teaching that I picked the wrong major. It is probably good that Reddit doesn't have a running counter of how many hours I've been staring at this thing. I practiced piano for hours every day for 15 years, performed in multiple countries, originally went to college for it. Hooray arthritis. I spent months developing a DHEAS radioimmunoassay with the intent on using it on lemur blood samples. Ran it unmodified few times and found nothing. Spent the next few months modifying it to increase sensitivity something like 20x, thinking I had messed things up in the initial development. Still found nothing. Managed to find some additional samples from other primates. Everything ran off scale high. Turns out lemurs appear to differ from other primates in terms of their adrenal androgens. They don't really have any. Interesting finding, but God, that was frustrating. I wrote a book on a smartphone technology that was current in 2003. iPhone came along and it died. My career too. Construction. I've worked construction in different trades since I was 14. The goal was to obtain enough knowledge in each trade that I would be able to build my own home with my 2 hands and no help from anyone. I'm 29 and injured my back recently. I will never recover fully and won't be able to continue in construction. I'm heartbroken as this has been my dream since a young child. I think about this every time I leave a job. I have encyclopedic knowledge about how to do this job in my head, but now it's just completely irrelevant. I don't know why companies don't try to keep people around. I'm an expert at 35mm film projection. I spent half my army career in various schools learning to repair nuclear missiles. Now I'm doing desktop support and teaching the new guys how to install printers remotely. I have a friend who spent a couple years becoming fluent in Klingon. I really haven't personally witnessed anything that tops that. Naming all the files in my MP3 music collection. Hundreds of thousands of songs all named in the same format with album art, and now we have Spotify. Not 100 useless, but I spent 3 years scanning all my family's photos, dating back to the 1880s. I spent a lot of time beforehand, organizing them in chronological order. It was a massive project. After they were all safely downloaded, in order, on my iMac, I received notice of a computer update. Of course, I did the update. The next time I checked my photos, I realized they were all scrambled out of order. Whoever works for Apple, and is responsible for this, has a special place in hell waiting for them. Back in the day, amassing huge and varied music cassettes, creating mixes, etc. Social media. Worst thing I've ever done. My journalism degree and career. I started at it in high school with the morning TV show and school newspaper, got a bachelor's then a master's from an Ivy League and worked in the field for about a decade. Now I work in a completely unrelated field that I hate, but I have bills to pay. I can't think too much about it, otherwise I might jump off a parking garage. Beating off. My vehicle got hit with an IED in Iraq, lost most of my penis and all my scrotum. I haven't come since 2013. Back in 2001, a friend of mine that I worked both made a super small 512 MB bootable Linux-based operating system based off of Slackware Linux. At the time, we were using to boot up to a root command prompt on any PC we wanted. And that's about all we could use it for at the time, as Android and other small handhelds were just not around to put it on. I jokingly said that we should try and put it on a BlackBerry, but either of us did it. Spending tons of time modifying code and trimming here and there and converting bloated bash scripts to C, for room and speed. It was called ECO Linux. Friend and I wrote a fully functional BBS program just in time for it to be pretty much completely obsolete. I still have it somewhere, but there's no way to run it on any modern computer. It does things the OS won't let you do anymore. My marriage. Taekwondo. It took a freshman wrestler to effortlessly guillotine me for me to realize I should have been training grappling all along. Edit freshman in high school. Edit 2. I've since been training MMA since 2010 and have gotten my black belt in BJJ. That said, the more I train, the more I realize how much I still don't know. Be in it for the journey, friends. My long-running webcomic had well over 1,000 strips in the archive, but wasn't updating when the site it was hosted on, SmackJeeves, went down. I didn't discover it was completely gone until much later. I discovered I don't have the first 100 or so strips backed up anywhere, and I'm just not bothered going back to it. I've barely drawn anything in the last 4 years anyway. I invested years into mastering the art of pen spinning, only to find out that it has no practical use in the real world. Oh well, at least it was a fun and mesmerizing hobby while it lasted. Nuclear Engineering Master's degree. Started work 2 weeks before 3 Mile Island. But not a total loss, I suppose. I did learn a lot about cancelling contracts and selling 650 million worth of parts for scrap. Cosplay. Been doing it since I was 13, and learned to do makeup, wig hairstyling, sewing, prop and armor making, etc. It's also extremely expensive and competitive. Now there is seemingly only one route for it to go when it comes to online content, which I don't have any interest in. I still do it for fun, of course, but it's just a lot different than what it once was. A STEM degree revolving around computers from back when token ring topology was still in use. World of Warcraft. I developed a drug for autoimmune diseases. It would have worked for several indications. Knocked it out of the ballpark in animal models. Went into early clinical trials and did exactly what it was designed to do. Company went under for unrelated failures and I got sold to another company with the project. They mishandled it and eventually cancelled it before it got a chance in further studies. 10 years wasted, and the knowledge that there is a life-changing drug sitting in a freezer that will never see the light. I don't sleep well. Spent a decade learning everything I could about farming, its history, and how it's been done in different parts of the world. Got burned out because very few people can get paid properly doing it, and pivoted. I am a useless walking encyclopedia about the practical side of working with our natural world. My relationship with my family. Studying Japanese when I lived there. Just completely useless outside of Japan, especially when you're far off being fluent. Drums. Been playing for 25 years and still do it daily. My depression, fear of failure, rejection, and social anxiety keep me from playing with anyone or joining any bands. Haven't played with anyone in over 4 years. Motorcycle. I've spent the past year rebuilding it. Went to start it and I have no idea what's wrong with it. Spent 4 years learning everything about beekeeping, and even got to the point that I wanted to expand and quit my job to beekeep full-time. Get hired to drop off bees at farms to pollinate. Then collect the honey later and sell. I had 10 hives and the next year I was going to double that. Until I got stung and blacked out. Woke up in an ambulance with my father, who was with me at the time. Turns out that I developed an allergy and now can die if I get stung by a bee. I still work my day job and sometimes daydream about what if. My university degree. 8 years of study, dual bachelor's, honors, masters, and all it took was one bipolar diagnosis to blow that career path out of the water. Not thousands of hours, but in the early noughties Flash was the web design software of choice. I spent months learning it and then Apple didn't support it on their products and it died. I covered a huge polystyrene egg with thumbtacks to make a dragon egg for no reason. It cost me about $150 and it took me 2 months. This thing sat in my closet for years and I accidentally crushed it while tidying up.